And finally, Cole Hornaday, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to go off the rails a little bit. I don't have a comic book. I wanted to review the original TV pilot of Will Eisner's The Spirit. This was a made-for-TV movie back in 1987 that I think that the network, I don't remember what network it was supposed to be on, is recently, you want to look at it, Chris? I mean, the print's really tiny and I don't want you to hurt yourself.
That's okay.
I think the story behind it is that the network didn't want to air it, but there was enough of a fan outcry that they actually wanted to see it, and it was aired once. This just showed up on Warner Archive and the Warner Archive collection. I think it was put out about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe more recently than that. And I've always been curious about it, but little sidebar, I have never seen the Frank Miller Spirit movie. I have no interest in seeing it, but I've also never been a super fan of the original comic book. I mean, we all know and can appreciate the contribution that Will Eisner made to the industry, but I read probably the first 12 or so issues of, I got my hands on these archives back in the 90s, and I read them all, and the artwork was beautiful, but I was so put off by the cultural racism and the misogyny that were inherent in the stories that I couldn't keep saying it's a product of its time, it's a product of its time. I couldn't do it anymore, and I lost interest. So going back to the 87 TV pilot, I really love this. I watched it twice. It has an internal charm that we have lost. We have absolutely lost, except for maybe the Lego movies. When we tell these kinds of stories, it's campy the way, of course, because there was up to a certain point in time, we only knew how to tell, or at least film producers, TV producers only knew how to tell superhero stories with a Scotia camp, because that's what the Adam West, Burt Ward Batman TV series taught us. This has a TV budget. It stars Sam Jones, who is, of course, Flash Gordon in the Dino De Laurentiis film, a film that, bombed pretty badly, but rose to be like this cult artifact. It is stunning to look at, and he's weird and charming in this the way he's weird and charming in Flash Gordon. In fact, I think his performance in this is better because I think he gets what's happening. And the other really charming performance is Nana Visitor, who was eventually Major Kira on Deep Space Nine. She gets it too. And it's quirky, it's silly, it's shy, and it's actually kind of nimble in places that you would kind of be surprised by. And yeah, I think it's worth taking a look at. It's not perfect. It's super low budget, and it has that sort of saturated color aspect of again what producers back in the day thought that comic books should look like on screen. That got totally blown out of proportion when we get to the Warren Beatty, Dick Tracy movie in the 90s. But yeah, it basically tells the origin story of Denny Colt. He's coming from, and I don't know this part, but he comes from, his best friend gets murdered, and he tracks the murderer back to Central City from his where he works as a police officer in East Amphet, Oregon. And of course, the joke in the TV show is that you're from East Armpit. God, that got old so quickly. The only downside of the whole thing is that there was a black character in the original comic book called Ebony, who was a streetwise, I think, shoeshine child of the streets, streetwise, who was always helping Denny Colt, the Spirit, solve his crimes. So they changed Ebony's name in the TV show, and they called him Newbie, but we meet him, and he's still a streetwise thief character. He's selling Walkman. He's Walkman tape decks that he's stolen from a truck, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. We sort of like update him, but we still have this black character who's a criminal and cannot be depicted in any other way. So aside from that, I actually enjoyed it. I did watch it twice. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't cluck at it disgustingly. I actually was taken in by its charm. So yeah, if you can get your hands on The Spirit, the original TV pilot, I think you might actually enjoy it.
Remind me how you got your hands on that.
Well, our good friend Tom Stewart posted a trailer because he never seems to be absent from social media at any time. And I think
That's a day job too.
He does
Where
have, and he has a day job that keeps him really freaking busy, which just stuns me. And he does a play every 2 weeks. He's in a different play. So
Anyway, so Tom Stewart posted the trailer.
Tom, I'm sorry, I don't mean to diss on you, but actually I do.
It's all in love, Tom.
Yeah, he had posted an article about it a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I'd heard rumors about this. I remember seeing bootlegs at the bootleg tables at every comic book show.
It says archive collection on it, so you just get it from the WB website or something like that?
Yeah. This is a legit thing put out by Warner Brothers. But for years, you got your fuzzy looking bootleg on VHS tapes, like the original Fantastic Four movie and stuff like that.
Cool. All right. The Spirit.
The Spirit.
Thank you, Cole. Well, that's book report, or in this case, DVD report.